Hello, welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to learn about the Royal Black and Elite side of Black history. I'm Lady TrenettWilson, your lecturer and social historian, and this month is Women's History Month. And I picked a wonderful woman to cover today. Miss Eunice Johnson is a publisher, a beauty brand owner, and a woman who could be greatly admired for the work that she did in the community. So thanks everybody for joining me. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a returning royaler, welcome royalers. I cannot believe it. I think I have a member. This is all very new to me, so I'm still learning, but hello, welcome new member, and thank you. I think I got a super chat also. So I want to thank you for all of your support, and let's get into our lecture. Now, Eunice and Bob Johnson, they own the largest Black magazine in the world, and it was called Ebony and Jet Magazine. And really, Fortune magazine called them one of the 400 richest people in the country. So I think it was bigger than just a Black magazine. It was the magazine. Everybody had to have an Ebony and Jet magazine because it brought through pictures, beautiful pictures, the life of Black people and the Black culture alive. So it is still publishing today. It is still being published digitally and in print. So it has stood the test of time. It began back in 1945. Now, Mr. Johnson, before he began the Ebony magazine, it first got its start as the Negro Digest. Now, that was a play on something called the Reader's Digest at the time, which was a magazine that had like the TV guide in there. Can you imagine we used to have to look in a book to know what was coming on TV? But it also had articles. So he created this book and he said it's going to be a gold mine. And a gold mine it was. They sold 50,000 copies in his first publication. Now, thank God for his mother, because you'll see, when he was raised coming up, he wasn't a very wealthy person, but his mother, when he needed an investment to start the Negro Digest, that's who he went to. And she used her furniture for collateral to sign for a $500 loan to start his magazine. I bet she thinks that's the best investment she probably could have ever made. John was born in Arkansas on January the 19th, 1918, but he wasn't raised there. He finished high school in Chicago. His family moved during the Great Migration in 1933, so he ended up in Chicago, and that's where he went to school. But when he first got there, people were teasing him because they were calling him country. They didn't like his clothes because they were raggedy and shabby. And if you were from the South, especially during 1930s, it would, people there were pretty poor. The Black people were. So that didn't matter to him. In that moment, he decided he would do something and be something great. And, it's nothing like a made up mind. And with that made up mind, even before he left high school, he became the class president. But he didn't graduate from that particular school. He graduated from DuSable. And two of his classmates you may know. One was Nat King Cole, and the other one was Red Fox, and they both appeared on the cover of Ebony. So, what an interesting upbringing and to go to school with these gentlemen. So he graduated in 1936. He had a full scholarship to go to college. He had one little angst because they were poor. He didn't think he could afford everything else. But when God has something for you, it is for you. So he had to do a speech, and this man heard him and he really liked him. So he hired him right on the spot to to work at his insurance company. So that's how he made the money to go to school. So he took all of those ideas. One thing that he did for the insurance company was he had to put together newspaper articles and send it out. And so that's how he came up with the idea for the Negro Digest. Now, Eunice came from a very different background. She was born on April the 4th, 1916, in Selma, Alabama. Her father, Nathan Walker, was a doctor, and her mother, Ethel, was a principal. And she had four siblings. Eunice graduated from Talladega College, where she pledged Delta Sigma Theta sorority in 1938. And in 1940, she met John. She had moved to Chicago, and that's where he was, and she was studying at Loyola. They were married and they had two children, one named Linda, and then they also had a son, John Jr. Unfortunately, John passed away in December of 1981 from complications of sickle cell. So rest in peace. But Linda is still alive today. She's a businesswoman. So it was reported that Eunice was the one who landed on the name Ebony, and Ebony was launched, and the rest is history. Now, her first soiree into the fashion market was back in 1958, and she was just doing it as a fundraiser, really, for a friend for a hospital in Louisiana. Now, they just celebrated in 2023 their 50-year anniversary, and they have gone to over 200 cities and raised over $50 million for charity. I also mentioned her cosmetic line called the Fashion Fair Cosmetics. Now, that began because black women did not, number one, have a platform for modeling. So that's why the Fashion Fair show was so important for black women. But number two, makeup was not made for black women back then. So she was the first woman who had a beauty brand that included all of this makeup, and it is still available today. A lady named Desiree Rogers and her partners purchased Fashion Fair in 2019. Now, in his heyday, Ebony was bringing in about $200 million a year. Johnson owned 100% of the company, so it was all going into his family, which is really, really wonderful. The Johnsons also owned the Johnson Publishing Book Company. It employed 2,600 people and it brought in around $380 million a year. They were also owners of radio stations, television production network, and so much more. So Mr. and Mrs. Johnson were phenomenal. And Eunice, even in the middle of standing in such greatness, and I'm sure, being a part of Ebony took a lot. She had to work a lot. She met a lot of great people, but she actually forged her own road. So that's just really great to know. Now, Mr. John, he passed away in 2005 of heart failure. It was August 8th, 2005. And Miss Eunice passed away 5 years later on January 3rd, 2010, in her home in Chicago from renal failure. But man, what a legacy these two people left behind. Now, their daughter took over the company, but in 2016, Johnson Publishing was sold to Clearview Group. They were facing a lot of problems. In fact, in 2019, Clearview sold about $30 million worth of the Johnson Publications large archive. Later on, that group donated it to the Smithsonian. So it did have a good ending. Well, kind of a good ending because it did go bankrupt also. It filed for bankruptcy in 2019. It was Chapter 7, and the former NBA player Junior Bridgman purchased the magazine. He wanted to try to revive the magazine and keep it going, and he bought it for $14 million. So that is all about the Johnson Publishing Company and Eunice Johnson and the beautiful work she did to make sure that black women had makeup and a stage to walk on. So we greatly thank them. They have given us page after page of great joy over the years through Ebony and Jet Magazine. And did y'all remember Ebony Jr.? This was their attempt to try to reach the teens. So they really thought forward and they really had the black community in mind. They had passed before the bankruptcy happened. So when they were alive, the company ran really well. When Linda had it, was really running well. After it switched hands out of the Johnson family, that's when it started going down. It had to file bankruptcy. But I wish great luck to Mr. Bridgman. I hope they do well with it. And I still buy Ebony. You can get it digitally or in print. So I thank you for joining me. I hope that you learned a lot about Ebony and Jet. I hope that you support. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you joining me for another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Thanks for watching.